Did you know in James 3:1 that God actually really urges us not to become teachers? He actually says, let not many of you become teachers, knowing that we shall receive a stricter judgment. So God's saying that those who teach, minister, preach, however it may be that you do your calling, we will be more held accountable for the words we speak, what we teach other people, how we operate. If we operate in sin, everyone will one day have to take account for the words they spoke, how they affected people, whether good or bad. And as a teacher, you have even more of a responsibility, especially if you're coming out onto the pulpit here, speaking, you're preaching as a Christian, or you're teaching, or whatever you're doing. You have a responsibility. So if you are not abstaining from sin and you are not living a godly life, then you're actually guided not to be ministering to people or speaking publicly. Because I was actually watching, for example, a minister today who, this particular one, has problems with the principality spirit of lust. And as I was actually watching this particular person, I felt the spirit of lust come over me and attack me as I was watching their video. So this is just an example of how whatever that pastor or minister is dealing with, or struggling with, or not able to overcome, it actually goes and attacks the people that are watching the videos. So we will be held responsible for that. If I was in sin, or if I wasn't operating right, I shouldn't be up here, right? And I shouldn't be doing sessions on people, deliverance, because all the things that I cast out of people in deliverance, I have to have overcome that myself to be able to have authority over that spirit, to cast it out, but also to have I have a responsibility to be of integrity to that person. I need to have not be doing that sin so I can cast it out, but also so they're not affected by that spirit, and so everyone else that watches my videos is not affected by that spirit. So I come on here with integrity with what I do. So God really urges us, be careful becoming a teacher, because you will receive a stricter judgment and eye from the Lord. Part of abstaining from sin as being a teacher is also part of God's calling for your life. So when we are operating under what God's calling is for our life, what His will is for our life, there's several aspects to that. I'm going to list those aspects now. So the first aspect is we are meditating on the word day and night. We are sharing the gospel with other people. We are using our spiritual gifts within a church. We are abstaining from sin. And that's a physical church as well. We need to be in person serving in a physical church, associating with other believers. These are biblical. This is what it says in the Bible. What God's calling for us in the Bible is to preach the gospel, to pray, to meditate on the word, to serve in church with our gifts, and to abstain from sin. So if you, even as a believer, you're trying to figure out what God's calling for you, for your life is, if you can't follow those simple aspects, that's the very first step to following your calling, is following those that I just listed now. So if you are struggling, or you're not able to completely do that, you're not actually fulfilling God's general biblical call to you from the Bible. Then people want to look into what is more of a specialized calling. So for specialized calling, for example, would be how I'm running this ministry. That's more of a specialized calling that God has for me outside of a general calling. I'm still working on these few aspects that God is saying to do, because there's some aspects that I can do better. So sharing the gospel, for example, I'm working on sharing the gospel more physically in person. That's something that was done in the Bible and that I need to work better on doing. I'm sharing that as an example. Using my spiritual gifts within the church, within a physical environment, that's something I'm also working on doing better. So as we really fulfill just a general biblical calling over our lives, then we can look into a specialized calling. So the specialized calling is the ministry that I'm doing now, but I also should be getting better at doing the general calling as well as doing this specialized calling that I'm doing. If I was not abstaining from sin, though, which is just part of God's general calling for your life, then as I said earlier, I should not be ministering. I shouldn't be up here ministering if I was not able to resist the devil and overcome those particular demons coming my way. So that is what I wanted to talk about. But when people look at specialized callings as well, things like, what is a specialized calling? It's not just ministering or being an evangelist or preaching or being a prophet. There's some examples of a specialized calling, but it can also be your marriage partner, getting married, and your like how you want to do your career, how you want to do your kingdom purpose. So if we can't master some basic principles of God's calling, of our general calling, then it's actually not guided to go onto a specialized calling of marriage or ministry, because you're actually not really ready biblically and within what God wants for us. So it's because of course there's also time needed for you to develop your character for marriage and understanding the word. Because if you're not sharing the gospel and you're not meditating on the word day and night and you're not praying, then you're not going to understand the word. So if you don't understand the word, then you're not going to be able to pick the right marriage partner. Because when you're truly in God's will and calling and you understand the word, you'll be able to pick the right marriage partner as well. Because the Bible tells us what type of man or woman to marry, what kind of qualities that we want to see them having. This is just a general video that I felt led to make today to share with you. I hope it helps you guys. You can look at Proverbs 31 woman. So that's some qualities that you could look at in a woman. But in a man, things like, I've mentioned this before, but things like he should be able to spiritually lead you, teach you things, cover you. He needs to be equally yoked to you, as it says in Corinthians. So we're guided not to date anyone that's not on the same level as us spiritually, that doesn't have the same beliefs, ideals, morals, values, that is in any kind of darkness. So if he hasn't mastered sin, if he hasn't overcome lust, if he hasn't overcome certain temptations, he's not adequate to lead you. Because as women of God, we're guided to turn to and look to men who are spiritual leaders, to lead us, to cover us, to protect us, to be able to educate us. We know that they're living in a godly living of how they're living their life. We know that they're equally yoked. We know that we can trust them to lead us. So there is other Bible verses though to go with men of God, what kind of men you're guided to look for. So you might want to do some research on that if you're guided. But yeah, God bless all of you.